יש לה אחד, קצת נחדי אחד. Seitan yeachti osa, digging a hid, a kohidi, kagwantan yedi tu chatzati. My name is Ed Coons Jr. I'm from the Frog House, the house in front. I'm a child of the Kagwantan. And we are the Juneau Tlingit dancers. We have a play for you this afternoon. It's a story of the raven and the king salmon. The story of the raven and the king salmon is told by the Tlingit people. And many of the pictures that were taken at the potlatch over in Sitka in 1904 Stock One, who is chief of the Tlingit from Yakutat, is shown wearing the hat that recalls the story. The hat itself is on the cover of a book called Raven's Journey, Story of Alaska's Native People. A book that's by Susan Kaplan and Kristen Barsness. The story is also on the pole out at Ock Bay Recreation Area with the raven on top and the birds on the shaft directly below it. This is the story. On one of the raven's many journeys, he happened to be walking on the beach. You go out and get it. He happened to be walking on the beach near an abandoned camp in the Yakutat area. While poking around in the remains of the camp, he found a piece of jade. Do we have the jade? While poking around in the remains of the camp, he found a piece of jade, which he picked up and brushed off. While brushing it off, he discovered that there was a likeness of a face on it. He took the jade and placed it on a stump. Then he went back to poking around in the camp again, and he picked up a piece of leather, which he shook out and examined. Then he took it over to where the jade was sitting on the stump, and he wrapped the leather around the jade. Looking out into the bay, he saw a large king salmon jumping about. He walked down to the edge of the water and he thought about how he could get that king salmon close enough for him to kill. He went over to where the jade was sitting, and he leaned his head near it in a conspiratorial manner. And the next time the king salmon jumped, the raven called out, "See here, king salmon, jumping out there. Do you know what this green stone is saying to you? It is saying, you with the black mouth, You thing with the dirty, filthy gills, come ashore here. The raven was hoping the king salmon would become angry enough to come close and investigate who was hurling these insults at him, close enough for the raven to get at him. By and by, when the raven was pacing up and down the beach, the king salmon again surfaced, closer this time. The raven said, "Just wait, my friend. Don't come ashore yet, for I have some business to attend to." So the salmon went out again, and meanwhile the raven went up into the bushes. He found a large enough stick that he could use on the king salmon. He carried it down to the edge of the water and waited for the king salmon to surface again. And when it did, the raven struck him with a stick and hauled him ashore. The king salmon came close enough for the raven to hit him with a stick. Then he hauled him ashore. While this was going on, it created such commotion that birds and other small animals gathered to see what was going on. When the raven saw all these birds and animals that were gathering around, he knew that the salmon would not be enough to feed them all. So he thought of a scheme. Carrying along the king salmon, he got the birds to be his servants. And when he came to a good place on the beach, he dug a hole large enough to hold a fish. Then he said to all of them, "Here, you young fellows, go after some skunk cabbage. We will bury this in the ground and roast it." Then the birds left to look for some skunk cabbage. Meanwhile, while the birds were gone, the raven was looking at the king salmon, and he was thinking how he could trick these birds out of their share. The birds came back with the skunk cabbage and the ferns and brought them over to where the raven was. The raven asked, "Where did you get these ferns?" And the birds replied, "Over there." And the raven said, "No, I don't want that. That place is unclean. I will not use it. Go back and pass over 2 mountains." So the birds departed to go over 2 mountains. After the birds had left, the raven wrapped the king salmon in the skunk cabbage and buried it in the ground and built a fire to roast it. After the salmon was cooked, he dug it up again, and he finished off the salmon. Then he buried the bones. He wrapped up the bones in the skunk cabbage and he put it back into the ground. Then he sat back to wait for the birds to return. Right here, we'll take a little short intermission while the birds are flying over two mountains for skunk cabbage. We'll sing a little song. The birds having flown over two mountains to search for skunk cabbage and ferns, returned to where the raven had buried the king salmon. Meanwhile, the raven sat there like a virtuous person, pretending to look like he was waiting the cooking of salmon. He said, "I've been across two mountains myself. Now it is time to dig it out." Then they all crowded around the fire and dug. And when they got it up, there was nothing left but the bones. The raven said, "You were gone so long, it must have all cooked away." And the birds were heartbroken that they could not share in what they had worked so hard for, and they started to cry. The raven was feeling excuse me. Raven was feeling a tinge of guilt, tried to cheer them up by giving them gifts. "Gather round," he said. When the birds came to him, he spoke to each in turn. To the robin, who had been standing so near the fire that his breast had turned red, the raven said, "You shall keep that fine red breast. You will make people happy by letting them hear you whistle. You will be a good whistler." To the blue jay, he said, "You will have very fine clothes and be a good talker. People will copy your colors." To the wren, he said, "You will be a very respectable bird, and you will be seen only to give good luck. People will hear your voice always, but never see you." To the magpie, who up until that time had a stumpy tail, he said, "I will give you something to be proud of. These bright, colorful tail feathers." Now you can strut and show off your fine new tail. All of the raven's adventures and stories, his journeys are one long tale. This is the end of our story here. This was the time when the raven gave all the birds their plumage, and he gave all the animals their characteristics that they are known by today. For instance, he said to the grouse, "You are to live in a place where it is wintry, and you will always look for a place high up so that you can get plenty of breeze." He gave the grouse 4 white pebbles to swallow so that they might become his strength. You will never starve as long as you have these 4 pebbles. Thank you. That's the end of our story. I would like to introduce some of our living treasures that we have here on stage. Our elders. We get our wisdom, our skill, and our knowledge from our elders. I'll start here on my left. My mother was the founder of our group. She is Tlingit. In 2, sitting next to my mother is Helen Sarabia, Kachkurov. 25 years ago, William Smith was one of our original dancers when we first danced together as a group and went down to Baltimore and Washington, D.C. William Smith.
Can I say something?
Hazel Lichtenlock. Martha Benzel. Everybody knows Alfredo, our 2-time Grand President. Angescu. I would like also our young dancers, our children, to step forward. The first verse of the song that we use for an anthem says, "So it will not be forgotten on our grandfather's land, you will hear our voice." And it's because of these children that you will hear our voice. In 25 years, they will have children of their own, and they will teach what they have learned to their children and grandchildren, so that our voice will always be heard on our grandfather's land. Gnachtaji. Kakau. Diet. Shnautan. Kautla. Also, we have some guests in our group that I would like to acknowledge too. There are three of Juneau's finest police officers from the Juneau Police Department.
My name is Ushkan. To my left is Chris Sell. She's part Cherokee. I asked her to join. To her left is Tom Wennis. He's a Raven Coho, adopted 2 years ago. There are actually 2 more officers that are voluntary. There's 5 officers total that volunteer their time for security here. You may not notice us because we weren't wearing our uniforms, but we're here because we wanted to be part of it. Kleshchish.
Where's that sing? Shout the naked and Katuda Hati Kaudeya Tachwasayu Uwayayi Tunachut Kaudeganeyachyatir Kaya Wune Yak Yi Ki Hayika Gunalchish Yi Siku Yawawati Yashkatnik Yad Ayana Kausitut Yes You Yak Dat Knichiana good there. Yes, our tea. Next time, Tlingit Krenach Kagachtusanik. Acho Miskutuliach Yayi that I can the Hityagao Asuhawa ka teaching the young people. That's what we're doing here, and that's what they told us to do. I like to tell you about the Batan. Singitye yasak atsi ye wuchaka ye awa. Nehlyo duhu nihu awa kashukayan uhanch. Wa atsi wuchaka you atsi kakosi shower you do a sak. Awas ultinch. They watched the Batan when he's the first one to enter. When he lowers the Batan, that means sing softly. When he hires the Batan, that means sing it loud. I don't think the young people they're trained to do that because I watch all this time. So ya dehen ataya mistake yach yati. But it's up to us older people to correct it. Awayata awakta wasikuyi kukwakani ke kunalchis antkine. Thank you.
We have enough time for Wasahakati before our exit. Anahe. Anahe is our exit.
Woo-hoo.